Hello, my name is Ranos Dracuris. I am a scholar at Droma University. Throughout my studies I have found an acute likeness of the Dorum Empire. Throughout our series we will be discussing the humble beginnings of Dorum all the way to its subsequent collapse. From Doros to Augustine XI, we will witness great wars, political strife, and destruction. I shall hope you all enjoy this series. Also we will be using the standard Terralore dating system BF, before fall of the First Dorum Empire, and AF, after fall of the First Dorum Empire. Dorum was not always a great empire, for even great civilizations have humble beginnings. In the year 5000 BF, the first people from the ancient kingdom of Kogabi landed in Old Dorum. By 4500 BF these people founded their own kingdom called Eninos. For 3000 years the kingdom existed isolated from the rest of Terralore. It wasn't until in 1470 BF that the Sign Empire invaded Eninos. However, the kingdom would be spared complete subjugation by Sign. Eninos would however be forced to become a protectorate of Sign, paying tributes to maintain their power. This situation would last for 300 years when the Sign Empire collapsed. In 1170 BF Eninos had become independent again, however the collapse of Sign had made Eninos poor. In a bid to revive the Eninos economy, King Mernos forced the lords to pay their taxes, however he would soon be assassinated by his younger brother Ceros in 1120 BF. Ceros was a greedy and evil person who had accumulated large wealth from harboring money with his wealthy friends. Ceros had always viewed his brother as weak, and after claiming the throne he started murdering rioting peasants left and right. Fearing that his two 11-year-old twin nephews Doros and Dalos would someday overthrow him, he ordered them to both be executed. However, the twins' widowed mother Queen Andrania saved the twins and sent guards to protect them. She sent Doros and Dalos into the wilderness to survive and someday return. Upon hearing of this treachery, Ceros ordered Andrania to be executed, and on 1119 BF Andrania was drowned in the river Eninon. Ceros also ordered his soldiers to search for the twins to murder them. Eventually they were located and their guards were killed. However, when Ceros' soldiers returned they were not able to find the twins. The boys escaped by hiding and evading the soldiers. Eventually, the boys wandered into the wilderness where they soon had to find the means to survive. After weeks of wandering, the boys were close to starvation until they encountered the great she-bear Dionysa. She would protect the twins and share her kills with them. Dionysa would guide them through the forest, eventually finding a farmer in 1118 BF who would care for the twins. The twins would spend their remaining childhood on the farm. In 1109 BF the twins had grown into young adults, both the age of 20. They both understood they had to overthrow their uncle Ceros in order to free Eninos from his tyrannical rule. The twins traveled around Eninos telling the locals about who they were and their plan to free them from Ceros. 5 months into their journey the twins had created an army of thousands to defeat their uncle Ceros. For 3 years the twins would fight battle to battle, defeating Ceros' forces. One by one the generals of Ceros kneeled to the twins. In 1106 BF the twins would encounter their uncle in the Battle of Eninosa. The brothers would defeat Ceros in the battle. Ceros would flee from the battle with 10 of his soldiers. Dalos, not caring for his uncle, allowed him to run. However, Doros, being the smarter of the two, chased them on his own. For 12 miles Doros would chase his uncle, eventually catching up with him and his soldiers. Doros would kill all of Ceros' soldiers. He would soon duel his uncle, defeating him in single combat by cutting off his head. He would soon ride to Eninosa with the head of Ceros. The revelation that Doros killed Ceros made Dalos jealous, soon creating a wedge between the two. The soldiers of their great army looked to Doros now as the true king of Eninos. Doros, understanding that there could be only one ruler, had Dalos murdered in his sleep. Doros would soon rename Eninos to Dorum in 1105 BF after being crowned king. Doros would create a new age of prosperity for his new kingdom. Doros would create libraries, temples, and new cities to facilitate his growing kingdom. Doros was gifted with longevity and lived to the age of 200, dying in 905 BF. Throughout his life Doros had accumulated a large sum of wealth and wisdom. Shortly before his death, he had ordered an altar be made. This altar would be made to grant only the wisest of Terralor with the complete enchanted power of Dorum's land. This power would grant the individual with immortality. Doros would put his spirit into the altar, awakening every 1,000 years to grant the powers. In 904 BF, Doros' son Damius would become the second king of Dorum from 904 BF to 830 BF. With his rule, saw the continued achievements and success of Dorum. He would continue his father's legacy, even creating the Datin language. After his death in 830 BF, his son Dolos would become the new king of Dorum from 829 BF to 770 BF. Unlike his father, Dolos was a terrible king who favored pleasures over ruling. He would be soon murdered by his soldiers, who appointed his younger brother Mernos as king. Mernos would rule from 770 BF to 730 BF. His rule wasn't eventful. His son Duromis would become king of Dorum from 730 BF to 710 BF. He would be the last king of the Dorosan dynasty. With Duromis' rule, he would soon conquer Great Ali in 721 BF, renaming their capital to Droma. It was soon his lords, fearing of his growing power, overthrew him. His lords would form the Arconis Doromania, translated from ancient Datin to meaning the Imperial Arconis. The Arconis would be made up of 50 officials, 2 of whom control the Senate under the title of Grand Archon. The Dorum Republic would rule for 400 years from 710 to 309 BF. The Republic in 450 BF would go to war with Opubo. The war would be called the First Obunic War, 450 to 433 BF. The war would see the rise of the great general Zirio Isuwicanus, who defeated the Opubo in the First War. However, 10 years later in 423 BF, Opubo would attack again, causing the Second Obunic War, 423 to 410 BF, being defeated by Zirio's son Vermerus. Zirios would be crowned Grand Arconis with his friend Andamanius Phanasius, both of whom would die in 398 BF at the age of 80. The Republic would continue to grow. However, in 350 BF, General Mulla would overthrow the Republic, crowning himself the dictator of Dorum. The Uniontium composed of 3 friends: General Tullius Aesau, a young general who had created a name for himself after the battles he had fought in, his friend General Conte, who was a great general, and Misero, a wealthy Arconis member. These 3 would gather an army to defeat Mulla in the Battle of Velocia in 345 BF. Conte and Misero would be named Grand Archons of the Republic in 340 BF. Tullius, who was born a slave in 380 BF, had risen to the rank of nobility through escaping his master and joining the military. It was through his military expertise that Dorum was able to expand their borders through western Kodalu. Tullius was popular amongst the citizens of Dorum. Feeling betrayed by Conte and Miseros, Tullius ordered his legions to attack key cities of Dorum in order to starve Droma in 337 BF. Conte and Miseros would be defeated in battle by Tullius. Miseros would flee to Kodalu, but once he arrived he would be executed by the Kazani Zerds. Conte would be spared, however, shortly be executed by Tullius's second-in-command Marius, against the orders of Tullius. This act angered Tullius, causing him to demote Marius in favor of his nephew Iapetus in 329 BF. Tullius would soon march on Droma, crowning himself the new king of Dorum. However, he would soon be murdered in a plot by the Arconis in 328 BF. His nephew Iapetus would track down the Arconis, executing them one by one. Shortly before Tullius's death, he had not proclaimed who would replace him, subsequently plunging Dorum into a civil war between Iapetus and Marius. For 20 years, the two would battle each other until in 309 BF, at the Battle of Senora. Iapetus would defeat Marius in battle. Marius would flee the battle, soon committing suicide to evade a painful execution. Later that same year, Iapetus would crown himself the first emperor of Dorum, creating the Iapetusan dynasty. He would marry Conte's youngest daughter Senura the Wise. Iapetus would extend the Dorum Empire eastward, conquering Holy Kur and Kodalu. Iapetus would rule for 39 years, 309 to 270 BF. He would father 2 future emperors, Miberius, 270 to 255 BF, and Barula, 255 to 247 BF. Next episode, we will be discussing the reigns of the emperors from 270 BF to AF 150. I hope you all liked the video. See you in the next episode.